So now that we've taken a look at making rollovers and disjointed rollovers, let's take a look at doing image maps. In your Chapter 5 folder, there's an image map underscore end.html and an image map.html. Let's go ahead and open those. If I take a look at my end file, we just scroll down a little bit here, I see that I have a map. And on that map, I have several different locations. And the goal is to have the user click on those individual locations and actually go to the corresponding page for that particular location. Because this is one image, instead of trying to cut it up into tiny little small pieces and try to make those match and actually work inside of a browser, we use what's called an image map or a hotspot. So when I click on my little blue circle here at the moment, I see that in my property inspector that there's a link attached to this. And when I click on each individual one, each one has its own separate link. So let's go over to imagemap.html and make this. So I'm on imagemap.html. I see my map, and if I click on it, you notice that I have also named this correctly. So I always make sure and name my images when I place them on my page. That way I don't forget about that later on. So with my image selected, at the bottom of my property inspector, I see where there's a map. I have several different types of hotspots: rectangular, circular, and a polygon hotspot. Depending on my image and where I actually want to create a hotspot at, or an image map, I can use any of the three. The third one making my own individual shape. So for instance, if I wanted to create a shape that goes with that particular state, I would make sure and use that one. So we'll use all three just so you know how. An image map needs a name. So I'm just going to simply call this map. Hitting my enter or return key. My image is selected, and now I choose which one I want. So we'll start with the rectangular hotspot. And if I click, hold, and drag, it tells me I need to include my alternate text to make sure that anybody with a screen reader is able to understand what I'm trying to accomplish with my page and the particular link that we have clicked on. I'll click OK to that. Now that's going to come up every time we do a new hotspot. So now my property inspector has changed to reflect the fact that I have a hotspot. So I've got a link. Automatically, regardless of whether I am going to choose something else or not, it automatically puts just a pound sign in to make sure that it's a link. And this is Denver. So I'll say denver.html. And maybe for my alternate text, I'll say visit our Denver location. Remember making your alternate text exactly like you would want a description. So if I were describing this to somebody who couldn't see it, how do I want that described? Now let's use our circular hotspot next. And I will circle around New York. The same dialog box pops up, making sure that I'm putting in the correct description into my alternate text. We'll give it a link of ny.html and putting in my alternate text. Maybe I'll say something a little different in each one. So now let's try out our polygon. So I grab that one, and for this one, let's do St. Louis. This one works just a little bit differently. So each time I click, and my dialog box pops back up again. Each time I click, it's going to give me a little segment. So I can work my way around a particular point of interest or in this case my map, I don't necessarily have to finish and go back to the original anchor spot. For those of you who are used to other graphic programs, I'm not making an actual shape here. I'm just defining the general area where the user's cursor is going to turn into a hand when they roll their cursor over that particular hotspot. So I'll call this St. Louis. Keeping in mind my naming conventions as I type for anything that's going to be associated with HTML, and putting my alternate text in. And we'll just call that the St. Louis group. And then we could always finish up with putting all of our maps around the actual image. Adding either a rectangular or a circular or a polygon hotspot. That way, if I have a complicated image like this, using an image map and adding my hotspots is a fantastic way to make sure that I don't have to cut up my image and I still get the point across to the end user being able to click on each individual hotspot and go to the particular page that they're looking for. In the next chapter, we're going to be looking at designing with CSS.